See, very often when we start talking about bankability, we get stuck in a loop of theory. The typical project contracts and risk allocation and political risk insurance, regulatory certainty, all of that. I'm not trivializing any of that, but it is also important to have a practical perspective to this. And I'm going to touch on a few points which I've observed from a practical standpoint, which affect bankability. First things first, increasingly I observe that, investors, lenders, participants take a very siloed view to project development, project financing, or investment. In a world today where project sizes are getting smaller, but increasingly the number of projects start growing, it is important to take a systemic view to project development and investment. And renewables is a classic example in many markets, right? You've got a lot of investment chasing generation assets. But the bankability issue is not really on the generation side of things, but it's on the downstream grid and curtailment and so on and so forth. And that systemic view to development is essential. Number two, standardization is a challenge, and Asia is notoriously guilty for not achieving that in many ways, also because it's a very fragmented market, it's multiple countries and so on. And India, Philippines, classic examples where standardization has worked. And that brings me to my third point, and that is essentially when investors, lenders start looking at projects, start evaluating investments and making decisions, they want to be able to deploy that capital time and time again with limited additional effort. So the more we are able to achieve that sort of standardization, the greater the ability to unlock capital towards these projects. And it's very evident. You just compare two investment grade countries, similar credit ratings and so on, in Indonesia and in India. The scale of investment in India far outshines what's been possible in Indonesia. And the reason for that is establishing that repeatability, that track record, which comes over time with standardization of frameworks. So big picture, if I have to list down 3 points for what could enhance bankability, for me, number one, and the most obvious, commercial viability of projects is essential. So resilient business models, long-term view. Number two, the certainty around regulation to support that long-term view, particularly because, when you look at new sectors, up-and-coming sectors, such as perhaps even green hydrogen, where we've advised our clients, it is important to understand that there may be an evolutionary phase where you will need some form of support, some form of government funding supports, FITs, etc., to get these projects off the ground and build a track record. In such circumstances, the continuity of the institutional frameworks, the contractual frameworks, is extremely important. And lastly, like I mentioned earlier, the repeatability, the ability to rinse and repeat time and again, is extremely essential. And that's what will enhance your bankability.